Morning. I hope you are having a cozy morning. It's a little bit overcast here, although I think we're going to get rain tomorrow. I am here in Northern California. My name is Andrea, and I am with Deanna Batdorf, who is an amazing Ayurvedic practitioner and practitioner of all sorts of health modalities from around the world. And she is here today so that you can ask her anything. How are you doing today, Deanna?
Been really good. Yep. Happy to be here. Always. One of my favorite things to do is just like be spontaneous with a question and see what answer comes out of my head and heart. So I really enjoy this process because it feels very natural, for me, in the world of knowing many people who then when they run into me, there's a plethora of drive-by questions in my life. And some people are like, oh God, I feel so bad for you. And sometimes when I'm tired, I feel bad for myself. But other than that, I really actually have learned I enjoy it. I enjoy the process of just kind of like question and can I answer it, And it's even fun when I'm like, I don't know the answer. And that's kind of fun for me too, because that means I have new research, because that's how I know what I know. Research and experience. That's really my thing. If I don't know the answer, if something's not working, I'm going to research it. I'm going to tweak it. I'm going to figure it out. And I do that with health too, just being a detective of all things. So yeah, I'm excited. What you got?
I can imagine that would be. What's that?
What you got for me today?
Oh.
Kind of curious because this is the follow-up to Men's Health. So
yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're working with this month is really zeroing in on the health of male bodies, which is short shrift in some ways, particularly in alternative medicine. I don't think that there is a lack of information, but there does seem to be this almost like a hesitation that people with male bodies almost feel like this isn't important, that it's not for them, this self-care thing. So I know you've really been emphasizing how important it is to step up and ask questions and feel, and we're hopefully helping these folks feel comfortable to ask about what's happening for them. So we do have a couple of questions today.
Okay.
Let me go find and get those for you. Okay. So the first one comes from a viewer named Mark. He is 49 years old, and all of a sudden, he is experiencing occasional bouts of impotence. So he's wondering what to do. This is something new in his sphere.
Okay. Wow, that's a really important one to be able to talk about. So this is why we're having these conversations and opening up this, this idea, because what a thing to be struggling with. And like, it's such an important part of the, the pleasure and just feeling, empowerment. I mean, I'm sorry, but our root chakras are seriously all about empowerment and having a foundation that really gives you, the energy needed for all things, and to rise up. And that's really what we're talking about here, is like being able to, rise to the occasion and be, in your power. And I think that this has been one of the reasons we aren't talking, and I'm going to answer this question, but one of the reasons I think we're not talking as much in men's health is because everything's kind of become, and for good reason, it has become very boundary related, and, and Me Too movement, and some important things about boundaries. But it has left men not knowing if it's even safe or okay to ask these questions. And so I think that is pretty precious if we think about it. Like, you know, it's okay for us all to learn and treat each other with more respect, or know what's appropriate and know what's inappropriate. But it's also important to say, yeah, there's another form of respect here, which is being able to talk about your body parts and be human. So I just want to do a shout out to Mark as I answer this question, that, you know, I feel you, and it's a big deal. So let me tell you probably the most primary thing. There's a couple things I could mention with not being able to connect to the root chakra. So we have to remember the pituitary gland, or we should know, behind your right eye is your pleasure pain relation. Okay, there's all kinds of hormones and chemicals, endorphins that are released from here. And they're all about being able to calm down or wake up. And not only that, but it's connected to pleasure pain. So where we calm down and wake up is also where we store or know pleasure and pain. And that's the pituitary, the governing gland of your reproductive, male and female. It's the governing gland for all glands in the endocrine system, but specifically, we don't have our reproductive functions and our neurotransmitters, which is part of the musculature and the pelvic floor of our reproductive. And that pituitary is what is able to be like, ooh, feeling good. And then your root chakra can rise to the occasion and be like, yes, feeling good. And we, as humans, all have muscles that have to connect there. So the first thing we would look at, believe it or not, and it's not just emotional, but it's part of emotion, is stress. Now we're going to get to this 49-year age because that's another piece of it too. There's a reality here too. But the more stress and the more pain we are experiencing, the less we are able to send the concept of pleasure to our root chakra. So it's really literally that easy. You know, it's that simple in like, whoa, now simple stress is not simple, but really that's what's happening when somebody is saying, I'm stressed out and I can't get there. So if you know that you're in a higher stress, which I find life very stressful, and I am less stressed than I've been in a long time. I'm like, I'm still stressed. What's going on? I'm like, oh, it doesn't go away. It changes, but it's just real, you know? And so I would consider that, and then maybe make a list of your stress factors. It's just like a budget, you know? We need to be able to say, are we happy in work? You know, and it could be that you don't love your work, but it's making plenty of money. So it's serving you. So you can learn to like that because you like the money, you know, but we often talk about how work should be our dharma, our path, you know, and then look at money, major stress, major stress. It's connected to that work, but I do look at them a little separate, relationship to self and then relationship in the world. You know, and then now there's a big old stress factor, which is relationship to the earth. And it's a big stress, and I feel it. And I think everybody else who's feeling conscious about what's going on in the world, you know, it's another stress we've layered in, and it's a real stress because it's really happening. So I really just want to talk about those stress factors and take them serious. And there will be emotions in there. And then we realize that anything emotional that is creating a pattern is going to become a physical issue. So we know this, chakras and glands. We have 7 chakras, 7 glands. Chakras are our energy body in our inhale, and then our exhale is about feeding the glandular physical self. So your emotions feed your physicality. And then those glands, which are the hormones, they're kind of like the energetic speakers. It's the first communication between what I experience and how my body is feeling about it. And really, we feel things and then we experience them and then they become something. So, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to breath here because I'm also going to go to breath and segue a little bit more into this question, go a little different direction. Because breath is oxygen, it's the beginning of H2O. And the older we get, the drier we become. That is no matter what gender you are or how you identify, no matter where you're from, the older we get, we are eventually going back to the ethers if we even live long enough to kind of have that natural journey. We come in very earth and water, and then we have our fire time of life, and then we get more into the air and the bigger picture and the bigger wisdoms. And men go through menopause, they go through their own process of pausing to change, running on wisdom, and eventually back to the ethers, the coldest, driest elements we have. So dry out. And gosh, as a person who is probably at this point driving dehydration and electrolytes into the ground, because I've been talking about them for so long as the primary epidemic of our world is running out of water. So we mimic the earth, which is why we're so concerned, and it's become a stress because we mimic that. We have the same amount of water and we get drier the older we are. So let's be honest, 49, menopause might be running out of juice. We got to feel, not just feel the pleasure, want the pleasure, brain, pituitary. We have to have the juice in our reproductive to be able to really, again, rise to the occasion. So this is an important piece right here of just how much could I talk about omega oils? And I would like to, plug, it's not something I sell, though I do hope everybody spends some time shopping at the DeAnna Essentials store, or maybe at Rosemary's Garden in town for the holidays. That would just be very lovely. But I am going to plug something that's just the truth. Fish oil, fermented fish oil. I like Nordic Naturals, but fish is a protein omega oil. A lot of omegas are from seeds. I'm fans of them too. But if we're going to talk about genitourinary and being able to, have pleasure, create an erection, we want proteins, because protein power and fat fuels, and protein and fats are the things that deplete as we get older if we don't learn how to keep digesting them and moving them in our system. So I'm going to major plug omegas, and at that age, and if you do feel like you're more vata or pitta in constitution, meaning more thin or muscular, you're looking at anywhere from 8 to even 10,000 milligrams a day. I would say 8, and then do a bunch of olive oil fresh on your food for some extras, but 8,000 milligrams of fish oil. And that's a protein, and it's a healthy omega fat, which means it's totally digestible. And that really could make a difference. There's a couple other things I'm going to mention in that, which is that's how we absorb water. And if we can absorb water, like electrolytes, keep water moving through the system. So that's why you would go to DeAnna Essentials. You got to get your gray salt, and I beautiful, beautiful gray salt. That's quite different than the ones that are on the market, actually. So I would highly suggest getting gray salt. Start putting it on your food. Eat electrolyte salts to taste. Atlantic gray salt is an electrolyte. So table salt is processed, and gray ocean salt is pure, just electrolytes, where water and earth met each other and collided, made the only edible crystal in the world called salt, connected to potassium, magnesium, chloride, and sodium. And it's how we break down calcium. And calcium is a big part of our musculature, not just our bones. And we need that calcium to keep those muscles strong and connected. So I'm really going to just say we have to be able to assimilate and absorb water. And that is our blood pressure. And then that blood pressure is what allows us to have a pleasure thought in our brain, and then have a blood supply meeting our muscle strength, and really being able to, like I'm saying in such a lovely way, rise to the occasion, So the only thing about omegas is they're cumulative. So don't expect them to help you out in a week. Sorry to say, and it depends on how dry you might be as a person. But, it's kind of like 1 pill, 2 pill, 3 pill, 4 pill. Takes a while. So give it a good 2-3 months. And I'm going to be really honest, it's not like you're going to go off of them. Omegas are something we need to survive, and we need them more the older we are. So salt, you can always trust by taste, and like when you need it, you need it. If you're not craving it, you don't really need it. But oils, we kind of got to stay on it with the amount of stress in the world and how much we burn that fuel off, and just staying juicy. And then I would give a plug to protein in general. I would really give a plug to just, I mean, literally protein. Now, there's one other thing I can give a suggestion to, which is I have 2 essential oils to mention, and then we'll see if there's more questions. One is basil, sweet basil. I have a beautiful sweet basil. There's many basils on the market. Mine is really kind of sweet, and you could just take a tiny little, not even a drop, you put it at the base of the penis, not on the tip, right at the base, like at your pubis, at your pubic bone. And that is warm. So if you run cold, basil is warm, and for, it's known more. Another problem we have, it's known for women's health, a menagogue. A menagogue is anytime you need more downward motion, like having a baby or menses. But men need downward motion too, because they need to be able to, connect that space to get an erection. And so basil can be that warm, deep, I'm connecting to my root chakra, and then being able to keep your mind not in the crazy cray stress in the brain, monkey mind, but you got to keep your energy down and low. And that goes back to the breath, because if we're not breathing, everything's kind of more up in here, and we're like, sucking it in, sucking it up, or like, oh, I hope this can work. Oh, please, please, please. And then we're not down and breathing in and expanding into that root and letting yourself just stay there. And you may have to work that a little bit more to get the juice needed for the end result. And then the other one is peppermint. And peppermint, doesn't burn, but it's minty fresh. So it's going to be pretty tingly and stimulating, but peppermint is a literal stimulant for if you're just kind of tired and exhausted and you just really don't have the oomph, but you still really enjoy, spending time with yourself or someone else, and you just need that little bit of a, let's do this, like the motivator. But you would want to do a tiny little tap on the top of your peppermint bottle, just a tap. You don't want to drop, and again, it's not going to hurt you, but you're going to be all, whoa, and it's just going to be a bit much, which is also why you see peppermint in a lot of clitoris creams, because it's woo. And that's kind of nice. But why would we not have these kinds of stimulating, yummy, things for men too? So, yep. Just as women need some help sometimes, so do men. No big deal. Just these are the things we would use. So basil's the warm and heavy and staying down, and the peppermint is your motivator, just to see if you can get a little bit of energy going in the moment, or keep it going. Keep the energy going. That's another one to think of. Yeah. So I hope that helped answer the question. But you can see, these are things that I talk to with men, and, I don't find these to be bad conversations at all. I think everyone should be allowed to have healthy pleasure, respectful pleasure.
That is absolutely right. And I think your answer is going to relate to the next question we have. We've got with us a different person named Mark, but hi, Mark. I'm so glad you're here with us. And Mark says that he suffers from cluster headaches, which his doctor says can be triggered by alcohol and stress. He doesn't see either of those leaving his life soon, but the headaches just wipe him out. They make him done for the day, and he has no choice but to go to bed. So he's wondering what he can do to work with this if he's not, he's deciding not to stop drinking. And it sounds like stress is always going to be there. So are there things that he can do to mitigate those particular factors and work on these cluster headaches?
I like this question. You know why? Because my parents did a great job at teaching compromise, healthy compromise. And so when I'd be like, I want to stay out until 3, and they'd be like, excuse me, 12. And then it'd be like, well, how about 1:30? So we would always find these meeting in the middle. And it really was a healthy communication. And I've taken that into food. I've taken that into different ways of looking at things, or vices like alcohol. So I like that you're being honest enough that you're not going to, or are not ready to kind of like take the thing out that you think is probably the culprit. And that's honorable. So let's talk about what's the compromise then. What do you do in connection to? One would probably be getting on aloe vera juice. I would have to say aloe vera juice would be a really smart thing. So think about it. If you're putting alcohol in, which affects blood levels, blood sugar levels in the blood. Okay, so sugar. And then it also affects the liver, where it has to process it, and it wastes a lot of energy in the body. So these are the things you're going to want to keep clean. And honestly, I've also talked to people where it's like, but could we clean your blood where less alcohol even is needed? Or you have a different line, a different tolerance. Some people are like, I don't want my tolerance to change. I'm really wanting my alcohol. And I'm like, well, you should know that the cleaner you get your blood and liver, usually the less alcohol you can take it, that's why, like, people who don't drink and then they drink and you're like, whoa, did you, hear yourself last night? They're like, oh. So these are some ways to look at it, is like, how much are you willing to clean up your liver and your blood? And aloe does this. And if you really are a daily drinker, I'm going to suggest this is inner fillet aloe, but because you don't want the leaf, it's a laxative. You just want the pulp. And I'm going to suggest you do a cup every morning, every night. And just make sure that what you're putting in, the residue and the backlash of that choice is coming out. You need to keep that cycling through. And then there's another one I'm going to mention to you. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's 1 drop a day. So it is going to last long, even though the price on the website is going to be like, what? But it's blue yarrow. Blue yarrow is a liver and blood cleanser, and it is blue as blue can be because of the ozuline chemistry, no dye. It's a chemical reaction with the yarrow plant, white flower yarrow. And that blue shows you how anti-inflammatory it is. And if you're putting in something that's really acidic and syrupy, you want something that's going to clean up your blood and clean up your liver and give you an anti-inflammatory to stand on. And aloe does that too, but it's the hydrating, kind of flushing things. And that yarrow, you're going to put 1 drop before bed or in the morning. Doesn't matter when you do it, to be honest. And your liver is over here on the right side under your rib cage. And you're just going to put 1 drop in your hand and rub it on your liver. And you could be like, oh, thank you, sorry. And you can just really make sure, you've got more than just alcohol cycling into your system. And you could also clean diet. You could do more, you could do veggie juice in the morning, cucumber and celery, and I don't know why people don't juice zucchini. It is so brilliant for juicing. But just bok choy, all kinds of wet white vegetables and green vegetables and ginger, so maybe a cup of aloe every morning, maybe juicing vegetables and ginger tea in the morning. You can add the aloe and the ginger tea together and then do a little drop of blue yarrow during the day. Like just a couple things where you're like, hey, I'm making this choice. Maybe I could break even a little bit more. And we do know that all headaches and migraines stem to liver spleen. And the spleen is dependent on the liver. So you don't even need to worry about the spleen. It's all about liver health. And then the spleen gets healthy from there. It's your immune organ. And headaches are fire rising. Makes sense, right? So, fire rises in the house, in the body, just like a house. So that's all excess acidic or fire rising, and the blood is too thick. It's gunky. It's got toxins in it. Its sugars are syrupy. So the blood gets syrupy. Even the pulse, when I check someone's pulse, is very syrupy. And that thickness then pressurizes the blood, and then boom. And then cluster headaches are connected to the 12 cranial nerves. So I don't know where you live or where you're going to find this, but Neti, Netra bastis, the ghee bath on the eyes. Super, super amazing Netra bastis. If you're local, I could give you some names, but you know what I mean? You're going to find somebody Ayurvedic who will do those ghee baths, but man, that is just nourishing those 12 cranial nerves. And that's, where the fire is really affecting you with a cluster headache specifically. So that would be my protocol. Yeah. And it's good to know, I don't like to play games with people. Like, people drink, people smoke, yeah, people take pills, people do all kinds of things, and it's more natural, and we do it with only certain people or alone. And then we go out in the world and, we eat organic, you know what I mean? And there's all kinds of things around that. And, so, but when I really get down to it, most people are kind of like, yeah, I do live in wine country, or like, yeah, I can tie one on. Yeah, and I'm like, no big deal. We do these things, they're human behavior, they're coping mechanisms. We know they're coping mechanisms, but they're also what they call false play in Ayurveda. So that's the only one thing I would say. I'm not trying to get you off of your alcohol if you enjoy it, but it is considered false play when in excess, just like smoking is false expansion. And food vices are contentment, false contentment, whether you're not eating enough or eating too much. You have to look at that level. So I would just ask you, are you getting enough healthy play in your life? Because it's really easy to work, and then be like, oh God, I need a drink. And I've been there, done that. So, it's real. But, that would be the thing to really ask yourself, is like, is there some place where I need to express myself or play a little bit more so that I don't need to maybe choose this, what they call false play, and that would be my advice to that question.
So it turns out that Mark is local in Santa Rosa. So I wonder if you might drop some names of folks who do Netra basti treatments in the area.
Yeah, so I'm going to mention two people who work together. One is Deanna Dennard. Yes, we have the same name and we're really good friends and we do the same thing for living. So we enjoy that. But Deanna Dennard, and now who's working with Deanna is Monique McMath. Yeah, I know, right? And Monique, I do panchakarmas with her here in my yurt, and she is a fabulous human, and she is doing specifically Netra bastis connected to looking at people's energy levels and stress levels, and that's all she's doing. She's just like a Netra basti, master. And she just sees what they do for people. And she's like, I just want to hold space and do netras and teach people how to like breathe and cope and move the energy out of their eyes. We get so trapped in old stories and visions and things like that. And she is really special. And Deanna does netras too. And I believe Carrie Hayworth is also there. Deanna and Carrie are two of the primary practitioners who We were at the old Atkinson Road. Before we even moved downtown, there was 9 of us over at another place on Atkinson Road in Sebastopol, and Deanna still have an office together. And what is it called? I'm so sorry, Deanna, I can't. Apple Blossom Healing, right?
I'm seeing Sonoma enlivened.
Oh, that's her and Tom's.
Oh,
Yeah,
right, yeah.
Kefir. Yeah. That's the Kefiri. Yep. She's at, I think it's Apple Blossom Healing, right? It's on Gravenstein. So if we look that up,
Blossom Healing Center. Yeah, Blossom Healing Center in Sebastopol.
That's where I'd go, and they're doing great work. Yeah. So,
That is fantastic. So we have Sean with us now. I'm so glad that these folks are here. And Sean is excited to learn about prostate health related through the lens of Ayurveda. And he is also experiencing sinus congestion and wonders how that is possibly related to prostate health.
I'm not quite, I mean, I could reach into that and give you a concept, but it feels like a little bit of a reach for those symptoms together. But I will give you just a little bit, and I'm going to go back to the pituitary. So since the pituitary is the governing gland of our reproductive, and that reproductive includes the prostate gland, and since the prostate is a gland and so is the pituitary, they're very interconnected. So I can see the connection there in the way that, like, think if you got really congested in your upper channels, it could maybe bog down the functions of your pituitary, and that could bog down the functions, which is what we call hypoglandular issues, when things are bogged and congested and stagnant, sluggish, hypo. And it could make for kind of a little bit of a weak or non-generating, prostate. But I feel like, again, I'm reaching, what may even be more clear, since our reproductive is very connected or affected by foreign invaders. The one question I would be asking here is, like, what's the congestion from? And if it's from mold, I do know that I don't have any proof of this because, I'm not in the AMA doing research or looking that up. I look things up, but I don't have any proof of this, but I do find a lot of people with mold problems, and it gets in through the nose and the mouth and the eyes and the ears because it lives in fabric when you have a mold issue. And then we sleep on it, that kind of congestion and a mold sporing in your system absolutely changes sleep patterns. It changes glandular functions, and I see it affect a lot of reproductive. And I've often looked at this. I'm like, why do they have reproductive issues again? And here's this mold, So that isn't too far, or that's as close as I can get without a stretch of those symptoms being related, and then I'll just, what's the remedy, or what might we do here? Well, I just mentioned Netra, basti, which is ghee bath on the eyes. Netra is the word of eyes, 2 eyes, Netra. But we also have a Neti pot. Okay, so Neti pot. And interesting, we call it Neti pot because if you were congested in Ayurveda and you went to the little Ayurvedic, herb dispensary, you would get a naso cup. And that's the same thing as a neti pot, but naso is the word of nose. And so if you're clearing out your congestion, they call it a naso cup. You're clearing out your nose, your sinuses. But neti pot is the psychological use of a naso cup. Get it? The neti pot is the psychological use. Neti, third eye. And it's where you're literally clearing your third eye as it's moving up in your sinuses and down and out in the other. You're clearing story. And so they have even kids do this. They teach kids, if they're old enough, but they teach them, you know, how to do a neti pot. And they help them when they have trauma to clear their stories. And I've done this for a long time where it's like, how do I transition from work to home, which is even a little harder now because I don't have a outside of work and home. It's the same thing. I'm all, oh, and I need to transition. And so I do neti pot. I clear my clients. I clear my emails. I clear my finances. Like I clear. And then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, Deanna's back. And then I'm just Deanna, you know, I'm not Deanna, you know, and so I just really want to mention whether you have congestion or whether you're wanting your glandular, because that's where we carry our history and our trauma and our stories is our endocrine, our hormones, our glandular. And here we have the right to clear out. So when you're in your right nostril, moving it through the left, it's going up into the pituitary and then over around your third eye and then down to the left hypothalamus, your brain and body switchboard. So we literally are working through our pituitary, through our hypothalamus, and then through our hypothalamus, through our pituitary when you do the other nostril. So there is a lot more to that neti pot than meets the eye. Oh, but you know what I'm saying. Everyone knows I've got a little dorky personality in me. I can't help it. So yeah. And I just really invite you to be like, okay, move congestion, but how much of my story can I move today? And how much can I like transition from one thing to another? Or if you do have something traumatic that's really deeply affecting you, use the neti pot to actually say, okay, I want to clear this out and come to terms. You know, some things we just have to come to terms with, you know, and keep moving with it. And we're like, no. And it's like, but it's reality. So it's about coming to terms. There's no avoidance. There's no getting away from it. Some things are just truth. And how do we acclimate? And so I use it for that too. Just how do I, okay, reality check, you know? And so, yeah, that's, I guess, where I would put those two together. And I'll say one more thing, and you know, the prostate can go hypo, out of energy, out of hormones or non-viable, you know, use. And then it can also get hyper, just like any other gland. But I want to be honest, vata and pitta. So whether you're more cold, dry, or hot, or a combination, usually what I find is that the prostate is actually depleted and it's hyper and it's kind of releasing all of its, you know, spermatic functions and like, okay, here you go, you know, and it's stressed out. And it more needs to be massaged, or what we were talking about last time, milking the prostate, more to like get it juicy and blanketed and calm it down a bit. Because I think that's the thing we need to know is you're not just cleaning it, you're also like releasing and expressing it, and then everything can calm down. So, you know, I find more hyper tax depleted prostate issues by far. And then I do congested prostate issues. So enlarged, you can think, but enlarged, isn't that congestive? Well, enlarged is usually inflamed. And when things are inflamed, they spread, unfortunately, like a fire, which I don't even like to talk about anymore, but now I can because it's wet outside. But, you know, inflamed is usually the swelling more than like full of mucus or something. Yeah. And what you're milking, if you are milking your prostate, what you're milking isn't probably mucus or congestion. The fluid coming out is actually excess fluid from inflammation, kind of like you sprain your ankle and it swells up, you know, with water, you know. So yeah, so if it is inflamed, you know, sometimes you'll have a little bit more, not just that milky substance, but you'll have more like, whoa, there's like some water coming out of there. And yeah, I'm going to give you 2 thumbs up for that, because you need to drain that fluid out. Yeah, from inflammation.
That is so fascinating. And I'm sitting here with my mind still blown about using a Neti to transition from work to your home life. Like that
Good.
right there is so profound. And it never even occurred to me. I mean, I didn't know about the third eye part.
How could you not know that? You've been with me for so long.
I know there are so many little things. And it just, I'm sitting here thinking, how many people are working from home now that weren't before, and they may not have a nice, cozy little office that they can just shut the door on. But what an amazing way to compartmentalize, to seal off that work life, to kind of calm down the sympathetic nervous system, to just kind of like transition out. That is valuable for everybody.
And we use electrolytes. We make, if you don't make that water salty enough, good salt, but if you don't make it salty enough, it actually burns and hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are like, I can't do it, it burns. And I'm like, oh, you're using less salt because you think salt is bad. Okay, wait a minute. Like, how do I help you to understand salt? And it needs to be salty, and then it feels silky and amazing. But yeah, and I, in my weekly restoration webinar, I take it even further, where I do the steam inhalation, I open up everything, my whole upper channel. I could even gua sha while I'm in there, or scrub my scalp, or just relax under my cocoon towel. Then I neti pot, because I opened everything up and liquefied it. Now I neti pot to clean out. And then I take some of my Mahanarayan oil and I snort it. You got to really work it. I'm showing you so you don't, think exaggerating it is bad. Because, I'll have people snort and they're like, I'm like, come on, get it on up in your brain. Like, I want you to like get it in your brain. And we lubricate with that nausea oil. Yeah. So that's a whole little system I do. And so when things are really hard, I'll be like, okay, I need all three. But I do that once a week in my weekly restoration. Because I still do that. I mean, that's still a very big part of my life. It is my healthcare. It is the thing keeping me alive, and it keeps me stable week to week to week. And then you got your day to day. You might as well do a week to week, because we have our day to day. So I got to know to stop, and I have a whole little system I do. But the first part of the system is upper channel. Steam inhalation, just use some rosemary or a little mint, a little ginger, whatever you got like that. And then you do the neti pot, and then you snort the oil. Mahanarayan, it's brilliant stuff. And that's for full body abhyanga too. That is just, I don't go anywhere without my Mahanarayan. I travel everywhere with that. It's my all over whatever I need, So yeah. Let's do a blog on that, Andrea. We should do a little blog on the, clearing story through neti pot.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So Madeline McCann's here, which is exciting. Haven't seen Madeline in a while. Madeline's excited to have caught this live. I'm excited that you got a second in your insanely busy life. It was insanely busy 4 years ago. I'm sure it's even more busy now. So one more question from Robert. Let's see. Robert is having some trouble around, I'm guessing this is kind of circadian rhythm related. So it's been a week or two since the time change, and he's finding that he's just not adjusting, and he's not quite sure why. He like last night he went to bed at 7:30, and the darkness coming early is just throwing him off, and he's really not sure how to get his body out of whack and back into the right rhythm.
Okay, so we're talking about circadian rhythms. So the first thing we need to, really establish is kind of what is our natural, it's kind of like natural breathing technique. This is like, what's our natural sleeping techniques? Like what is natural sleep? And one of the ways we get people back on track is by putting them back in the most natural cycle, and then you kind of force yourself to wake up and you force yourself to kind of sleep a little bit at times when it's awkward, until your body just kind of gives in to the new process. And so let's just talk about that as a starting point. It's not the only answer, but it is really, you know, how it plays out. So we are designed to wake up with the sun and to go to bed pretty much within 2 hours of the sun going down. That doesn't sound like everybody, does it? You know, and some people, you know, they're like, oh, I do get up with the sun. You know, I feel great about that. You know, I'm one of those early risers, but then they're going to bed at like 11, 12 o'clock at night. And so then we got a little tricky thing, because that's called not enough sleep for everybody. And you may not know, because it's what's become the more natural rhythm for you, but it's not a real rhythm. You know, it's the pattern. So let's look at that. It's like circadian rhythms are natural, and then there's sleeping patterns. So that's a tricky thing. And really what you'd have to do is kind of like a little bit of like lay in bed until you fall asleep earlier, because we're usually tireder than we think we are. So, you know, you're like, oh, I'm going to lay down. Oh my God, it's 10 o'clock. What am I doing? And then all of a sudden you're like, you know, for some, and then wake up with the sun. And so that would be something to look at. And that can be a problem even if you try to do it. So what happens with clients is they try to do this, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, there's no way I can get to bed that early. Like, I got so much stuff to do still before I get to bed. How am I ever gonna, you know, I gotta get it done. And then you're showing, here we are back to a stress factor. We're showing that like really we're meant to like stop working, eat, and then 2 hours of rest and just like self-reflection time and go to bed. That's how we're designed. And so if you're someone who it might be on the computer until the moment you go to bed, and you're kind of like, oh, still got to check in social media. Oh, that's all adrenaline, because it's stuff that we're doing that's an extension of ourselves that is really not a time when we're meant to extend ourselves. So what happens is that pituitary is like, keep going, checking, doing, surfing. And, you know, maybe still tweaking numbers and doing finances, which is ridiculous at night. Just, you know, truth be told, for myself, I can tell you. And then it just tells the adrenals that you're in fight or flight. And so you're not in that kidney oceans, and you're just riding the wave of the ocean. You're like surfing in the ethers where anything goes. That is so far from riding the wave of, you know, just our natural rhythm. And those kidneys need to relax and replenish. We have to replenish our oceans. And that's what rest is for. Otherwise, the adrenals sit right on top of the kidneys, just a tiny little adipose fat layer in between. And as soon as those kidneys are like, oh my gosh, there's not enough juice, or there's not enough energy, or there's not enough rest, the adrenals come and help you survive. And once your adrenals are in major survival beyond eating dinner and sitting down for a while and chilling out, they don't know how to turn off. So your pituitary won't turn off. And then you've got adrenaline, which is hot and dry. So the monkey mind is going off in here. It's sending this freaking out message, and then fire rising. And that's why a lot of times people are like, okay, I'm trying to lay down, but now I've got my heart racing and I'm getting night sweats. And those are adrenaline symptoms, because, you know, the kidneys feed your heart. And so they're freaking out. The adrenals are freaking out. You're like, let me try to sleep. And then pretty soon, you know, your adrenaline starts kind of feeling a different level of like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm freaking and you're sleeping. And it's not congruent to our natural circadian rhythms in the flow of our natural water and blood flow. And literally, this is where people end up with having sleeping issues. And it's the most common one. I'm mentioning the most common one I find, which is the phone or the laptop or the computer, you know? And so I would have to say, it's good to know when is when and when to stop. And Andrea, you saw me through this with the Deana Center for a few years. I was doing my emails, you know, I mean, like people were getting emails the next day and it was like 12:30 at night that I had sent that email. And it's all I had. It's all I had. It's the only time I had. And I had to kind of be like, no, this can't be my reality. I won't survive. So if it either has to wait, because we're in the like instant presto now. And I'm like, I got to stop this instant presto thing. It is not working for me. It's not in my Aquarian nature. You know, spontaneous, yes. But instant presto, I'm like, I'm more about doing things when the time is right. And I had to learn, like, wait, I'm allowed to wait and answer this when the time is right, when I have a real answer, when I'm not under pressure. So some things can wait, some things cannot wait. And so I have to do them right, you know, like when I get home or right at the end, like, okay, couple more emails, put out a couple fires. That's it. That's it. And I got to just be willing to say, no, I need me. And usually my partner needs me too. Otherwise, you get in that really interesting little place where you're hanging out, but you're not really engaging. You're still engaging something outside of yourself, right? Instead of engaging each other or engaging yourself. So how much are we engaging outside of ourselves socially versus with ourselves or with the people we love, or even our animals we love, or whatever that looks like, you know? And, you know, when we're stuck out in the ethers where we can do anything we want and go anywhere we want and see whatever we want, and all of our senses could be blown in any direction you want, right? It's inundating the pituitary. And then we just don't know how to turn off anymore. And our body, it's actually the function of the pain I was talking about. So that's not pleasure. You can think that's pleasure, you know, because you're like being activated, but it's adrenaline. It's not real. And it's not necessarily satiating. Like, haven't you ever like surfed for hours and hours and then all of a sudden you're still not satisfied? You're not even sure really, what did I just learn? What was that? You know, and I noticed that. I'm like, God, it's really just not satisfying. And so, you know, being someone who likes satisfaction and I like pleasure, you know, how do I make sure I stop and get to that? And then that gets me to sleep, because usually when I'm satisfied and I'm, you know, in a good place of pleasure and relaxation, and, you know, that's usually when it's like falling asleep is easy, you know? That's why people like to be intimate at night and then go to bed, because it's kind of like, yeah, let's get our yayas out. And then we're just like, oh, then you can sleep, you know? You're like, wow, that's a really good sleeping aid, actually. It is, you know, and I actually tell people who are having a lot of insomnia and you know, you got to go to the real picture of like, is it too much social media? Is it too much out of yourself? Is there too much stress in your life and you're not doing that neti pot to clear it out? So you really just don't know how to calm down, you know, because it doesn't have to be that you're surfing the web, you know, that's just the most common. But I do think, you know, these are also times when I'll say to someone like, okay, you're having a hard time sleeping. You've tried everything. Can I just ask, have you tried masturbating? Have you tried pleasuring yourself? You know, it's a great way to get to sleep. Or like if you wake up and you're all, oh no, it's 3:30, you know, and you're like, oh, am I going to get back to bed? I mean, I'm just saying one of the best ways that I get back to sleep is just, you know, enjoy myself for a moment. And then I'm like, good night. And then I wake up, I'm all, oh, I'm satisfied and this is good. And that was a great way to take me into pleasure dreams and pleasure sleeping. You know, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And it's a good use of it, you know, good use of that pleasure. So those are some of my ideas. And the other one, you know, I think we're back to, you know, adrenal, hydration, kidney. Trying to think if I could give any more or different directions, since sleep can have so many variables. I do think, going back to what I was saying in the stress factors, do you like your work, relationship, yourself? Are you relatively happy? I mean, you're not going to be just full on happy. I mean, I feel like we're probably happiest when we die. You know, there's always going to be stuff. There's always stuff. So no perfect here, but just how are you at least? I'm like, are you at least 50% happy with your job? I mean, come on. I like 70-30s. I think they're better than 50-50s in the world of happiness. I got to be at least 70% happy, you know, otherwise I've got to be wondering, you know, what's going on. 50-50, that could change at any moment, right? You know, that could topple over. So, and then it's not good enough. But yeah, I would look at those things too. So I guess that's probably what I'm going to say is like, can you wake up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and can you go to bed by 10? That's only 7.5 hours of sleep, right? I mean, it's not even like the full 8 hours that is discussed about our natural needs, you know? And maybe, you know, again, if you're staying up to 2, try midnight. If you're staying up to midnight, try 10, you know? If you're waking up at 7, wake up at 5. You know, if you're waking up at 9, you might want to really get to 7 and then work your way to 6, you know, like 9's a little late, you know? And I ask people that when they're having a hard time achieving goals, you know, I'm kind of like, can we talk just a little bit about, you know, when do you wake up and what do you do with your morning time? And do we realize that you could work on your goal in the morning as meditation, you know, karma yoga, action, yoga in action, you know, exercising your right to take action, exercising your right to achieve a goal. You know, people often are like, where's your energy come from? How are you getting all this stuff done? And I'm kind of like, well, when I have a project, I'm very strategic about working on it. You know, I'll give it an hour to 2 hours every single day, you know, and I know that's not going to be at night. I used to try to do all that at night. It worked in my 20s and 30s. And then I finally was like, this is so wrong, you know, and morning is so fresh and clean and quiet and expansive. Half the world is still asleep. I'm like, oh, freedom. And you can just really, really get a lot done in that time. Yeah.
You are speaking my language. I am a morning
Good.
person as well.
Yeah.
So I hate to say this, but we've got to wrap it up. This has been a really lovely time. And, you know, next week here in the United States, we have our major celebration of gratitude. And, you know, I want to tell everybody right now how grateful I am that you all join us, that we have the ability to connect and answer questions. And I'm so grateful for the vulnerability and the willingness to bring us into your journey. So I just want to put that in there. Deanna, did you want to say anything about gratitude at all?
Well, I've been saying for years, I'm running on gratitude. You know, I mean, that's another big energy source for me, is just being able to help and follow through and be available. And then to have people be like, whoa, this has made an impact in my life. You've given me tools for me to take care of myself. You know, you've taught me how to track things so that I can always figure them out. And I'm just so grateful to even be in a privileged position. And my biggest goal is to use the truth of my privilege very wisely, and to make sure that I am sharing my gratitude and sharing how grateful I am by, you know, giving back you know, and being available and just helping people to spread the word. You know, we should all be sharing this with everybody. I hope I'm sharing really interesting, somewhat edgy, odd, and health related things with you that make for great conversation. And so I'm just really grateful to be in a position where I can do that, and for everybody wanting to hear what I have to say. It kind of blows me away, really blows me away that people actually want to hear what I have to say. I'm like, really? Wow, you know, and it feels very real what I'm sharing. So that's pretty precious. And thank you all so much for that. And I guess, you know, on a business level, I'll turn that into like, hey, I got a whole bunch of deals and things on the website coming up. And my clinical course is $800 off through the end of the year. If you're planning on doing clinical with me starting next March, I believe all those details will be up on the website very soon. I don't think they're there just yet, but my body is a score. It's a deal, and it's on special too. And the My Body mapping starts January 8th. And I just really hope you all join me, or maybe even give somebody that as a gift. You know, the gift of being able to map themselves and understand the fundamentals of how their body works and what to do to take care of it. That's an amazing gift. So I want so many people to come to that class. Even if you think you've studied with me, if you haven't taken that class, it just lays it out in the most beautiful public health relation, just like this equals this, and try this, you know. All the foundations are there. So I hope you all join me and continue joining me. And I'm excited to see what comes up in this time of giving.
Yeah, I just want to echo that My Body mapping class it's a great way to like recalibrate and get excited, because you're like in a group of other folks online from around the world, and you've got this community and you're all like, let's do this. So yeah, if you can sign up now, if you can set aside some time that you know of in your calendar for January, it's $200 off. And, you know, we've got that special going on right now. The other thing, because the next time we see you, it will be December. We are in gift giving season, but let me tell you that our merch on our website is going to be 15% off. And the really lovely thing about this merch is that it's based around art. It's the art of Scott and the art of Ray, these two beloved people. And so what we've got are these blank notebooks, blank books, and these tote bags. And, you know, these blank books, who can resist a blank book, you know? So that's a great gift to let someone know that, hey, you could do a gratitude journal, or you can track your dreams, or you can track what you're eating and how you're feeling. Or with a tote bag, you can fill it with like some really cool self-care tools, and it makes an amazing little like package gift for someone. So right now, or actually starting next week, next Wednesday, I hope you mark it down on your calendar, because I won't be here to remind you, to know that our merch is going to be 15% off. So it's a great time. Go take a look. Merch is like a new thing for us, and I love it. And
it's got paintings on the front, and it's got Rodriguez, you know, the face map, you know, that she made from, you know, illustrated, and also the birth alchemy, just a beautiful relation to women and birth. And, you know, those are great conversation pieces right on your tote bag or your notebook.
yeah. And for those of you who actually got to see these art pieces in person when the Deana Center was there, it's kind of like taking a little piece of the Deana Center with you right near your heart, or in your notebook.
And Plaid Baby is on the notebook.
Yeah.
Remember Plaid Baby in the classroom? It's the one with the cheese grater, but it's got the man and the woman, and they're holding
it's right next to the couches.
Little monkey baby. It's called Horizontal Man, Vertical Woman, Plaid Baby. And it's the merging of masculine, feminine, and that everything happens all in between. So it was a early piece of Scott's that was designed around diversity, and that we are all of this masculine, feminine, and then we all become something of its own little, we're all our own little monkeys, little monkey babies. I love that piece. That piece is like, So, may you give that to somebody who is really working on diversity and finding their diversity, because that's really cool, as just a reminder of like, you're just you and be you. So that piece moves me. So.
Yep. So yeah, really cool stuff out there. So I hope you are able to go take a look. And if you like what you heard today, please share a like here in YouTube and subscribe to our channel. We're here every other Thursday. I bet there's going to be a little adjustment in December, but we'll keep tabs on that and let you know in our Instagram and our Facebook. So make sure you're following us there. There are scores of other amazing videos here on the YouTube channel, so please do take a look, and we're adding good stuff all the time. And don't forget our podcast, which is a lot of fun. And that is anywhere that you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all kinds of spots. So take a look. It's called Ask Anything. So that wraps it up. I hope you have a good rest of your November, and that you are able to sink into that gratitude and to really feel connections right now as we go into darker days, and nestle within ourselves and be swaddled and wrapped up in the love of gratitude for ourselves and our beautiful planet. Thank you so much for being here today.